You almost scrolled past this, didn't you? But something in you paused, not by accident, not by curiosity, by alignment. Because what you're about to hear isn't information, it's recognition. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. You were never meant to struggle the way you have. Not endlessly, not without purpose. The delays, the closed doors, the feeling that life keeps asking more from you than from others. None of it was random. You felt overlooked, misunderstood, sometimes even forgotten. You watched people move ahead while you stayed in preparation. You gave effort that seemed invisible. You carried responsibility that nobody acknowledged. And quietly, you wondered if something was wrong with you, or if you had somehow missed the path meant for you. But what if the waiting wasn't punishment? What if the silence wasn't absence? What if the pressure was actually positioning? There is a pattern that has repeated itself across generations, across deserts and kingdoms, across seasons of captivity and seasons of abundance. A pattern that was never shouted in public squares. A pattern preserved in discipline, in structure, in quiet obedience to laws that most people ignore because they look too simple to be powerful. You were taught to chase outcomes, to chase money, to chase recognition. But the ancient code never started with outcomes. It started with order, inner order, structural order, priority order, because wealth, in its deepest sense, never begins in your hands. It begins in your patterns. You can see it if you look closely. Every lasting rise follows alignment. Every collapse follows disorder, not instantly, not dramatically, but inevitably. The ancient law was never about getting more. It was about becoming structured enough to carry more. You thought your life was slow because you lacked opportunity. But what if it was slow because you were being built into someone who wouldn't lose what they receive? What if your hidden season wasn't delay, but construction? Because real wealth isn't just money. It's stability, it's clarity, it's self-governance. It's the ability to hold responsibility without breaking under it. And that kind of wealth doesn't arrive to the unprepared. It arrives to the aligned. This is why your life demanded discipline before reward. Why you felt pushed to grow internally while others seemed to coast externally. Why you sensed that shortcuts would cost you more than they gave you. You weren't being blocked. You were being calibrated. There's a quiet law woven into life itself. What you consistently order expands. What you neglect erodes. Not because life is punishing you, because life amplifies structure. You've already seen this principle at work. The moments you committed to consistency, even in small ways, something shifted. Your clarity sharpened. Your confidence steadied, your direction strengthened. It didn't feel dramatic, but it felt real. That was alignment responding to you. The ancient code was never mystical in appearance. That's why most people overlooked it. It didn't promise sudden miracles. It demanded sustained order, daily structure, intentional priorities. The willingness to govern your choices instead of being ruled by impulses. And that's exactly why it still works today. Because time doesn't break principles, it reveals them. You were never meant to run at the pace of the crowd. You were meant to move with precision, to build in layers, to develop roots before branches. And now, whether you realize it or not, you're standing at the moment where preparation meets permission. You can feel it, the sense that something is about to shift, the quiet tension of transition, the subtle awareness that your old patterns no longer fit you. That discomfort isn't confusion, it's expansion. You're not the person you were a year ago, not internally, not in how you see life, not in what you're willing to tolerate. Something inside you matured, strengthened, quietly solidified, and that is exactly what the ancient law required before increase. Because increase without structure becomes loss. Increase without discipline becomes chaos. Increase without identity becomes pressure. But increase built on alignment becomes legacy. You weren't being kept from wealth. You were being protected from receiving it too early. Protected from the kind of gain that collapses under its own weight. Protected from outcomes that would have exposed cracks you hadn't yet reinforced. Your life wasn't paused, it was stabilizing, and now the shift isn't about chasing anything. It's about stepping into what your preparation has made room for. Not frantically, not forcefully, but deliberately. You don't need to become someone else. You need to fully inhabit who you've already been shaped into. The version of you that values structure, that moves with intention, that no longer seeks validation from noise, but direction from clarity. You are not behind. You are aligned with a slower, stronger trajectory. The ancient code was never hidden to exclude you. It was preserved for those willing to live it. And you've been living it longer than you realized, every time you chose discipline over distraction, growth over comfort, integrity over shortcuts. You were stepping into the pattern. You weren't invisible. You were being established. And here's what changes now. When alignment reaches maturity, life begins to respond differently. Doors open that once felt sealed. Opportunities appear that once felt distant, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you became someone who can walk through them without losing yourself. You don't need permission to step into this next season. The preparation itself was the permission. Move forward calmly, not anxiously, not desperately, calmly. Because what's coming doesn't need to be chased. It needs to be received with readiness. You're entering a phase where your structure will attract stability. Your clarity will attract direction. Your consistency will attract increase. Not overnight, but undeniably. Stay aligned, stay steady, stay rooted in the order you've built within yourself. Because the same principle that shaped you will now begin to elevate you. And when the shift becomes visible, when the stability, the provision, the opportunities begin to surface, you'll understand something most people never grasp. You were never waiting for wealth. Wealth was waiting for the version of you who could carry it.